it sounds like it's been a crazy time on your end. A lot of promotional things and schedules and all that stuff. Must be that time of the sort of the cycle of the album. Promoting and getting the word out and stuff like that. Do you enjoy that whole process at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely beats sitting around wondering how long we can actually get back out there and do stuff again. So, usually like when you're like really busy and stuff, you can kind of be like, oh, I just want a bit of time off. But no, like I'm here for it at the moment. It's nice to be busy again and have purpose,
Yeah. Well, obviously it's been a crazy couple of years. How have you guys been sort of dealing with all that stuff? Because obviously you put out an album right before the sort of whole thing sort of crumbled. But then during that 2-year period, sort of how did you sort of deal with all that stuff?
Yeah, so you're talking about F8, right? So
Yeah.
that came out just as they started doing their European tour, and then I kind of came in halfway through that touring process, and then stayed. But yeah, shortly after that tour, the pandemic hit, and I was back in the UK and didn't really know how long all this was going to go on for, but there's always stuff that's going on. Zoltan's always doing stuff like business, thinking about the next thing, what we're going to be doing, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was home for about 2020 for the most of it, and then beginning of 2021 ended up coming out to Vegas and basically relocating so we could at least just hang out as a band and maybe kick some ideas around for the next, what would be Afterlife now, which is coming out on the 19th. And then do some music videos and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's been cool. I actually feel like in hindsight, having the gap and a bit of time off has allowed me to sort of get to know everyone in the band and like hang out and do all that, rather than sort of like trying to do that on the road. And because right after the European tour, we'd have been then doing another tour. I think it would have been like the US or something like that. So I think looking back, it's actually been quite nice to have the sort of quality time to get to know everybody outside of doing the whole rat race of the band thing. Get like a decent solid foundation going where we all know each other and stuff. So now like we're going out on tour and it's actually fun and we're all friends, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I think it's actually been quite a good thing. And plus the fact they've been so busy leading up to the pandemic anyway, I think it's done everyone a lot of good being off.
Just for those who may be not familiar with the story, I'm sure you've touched on this many times over the last couple of years, but how did the whole thing start with you and joining the band in the first place?
Well, I got to know Zoe he hit me up like once on Instagram, just asking me if I knew any guitar players that were potentially interested in joining a band that he was helping looking after. It wasn't anything to do with Five Finger Death Punch. It was just because just another band he was looking after. And I wasn't really doing a lot at the moment, at that moment anyway. And I sort of said to him, I was just like, look, the sort of criteria you're asking me if I know anybody that can do all that stuff. I'm like, I'm not really doing anything at the moment. I'm always doing like solo albums and doing my own solo thing, but it doesn't mean I can't fit in doing like another band because I'm my own boss with that stuff. I can pick it up or leave it whenever I need to. And he was like, well, yeah, maybe. So he put me in touch with those guys, and we just started building a relationship outside of that anyway. And then we finally met and we went out for dinner and stuff and kind of hit it off. And I suppose it wasn't really until maybe 3 months later, we hadn't like been in touch or anything like that. And then he suddenly texts me out of the blue and just says, he basically said to me, he said, what's your music retention like? Which I kind of thought was a bit of an odd question, because I was like, I don't know, how do you mean? Like, he said, well, do you think you could learn our whole set in like 24 hours?
Oh, wow.
I was just like, yeah, go on then, send it over. I mean, the thing is, because I was familiar with their stuff anyway, I knew the songs and how they went. I just never sat down and played any of them. But because I always thought like Jason Hook was a great guitar player. That's one of the reasons why I liked Death Punch originally, was because I liked some of his lead style. It was pretty cool. For like a more modern band sort of thing. so like I knew it wasn't going to be like a case of just sitting there for an hour, go through all the songs and be like, yeah, you know, easy. But I knew I'd be able to do it if I sat down and gave it enough time. And so, yeah, basically the following day after he asked me that, he told me that there was a ticket waiting for me at NAX, and, you know, because I was in America working with this other band, and I flew to the UK and basically just hopped on their tour. I thought I was going to be playing, because the gig that I flew into, they were playing Wembley Arena, and I was like, fucking hell, I'm going to be playing Wembley Arena for my first show with Five Finger Death Punch. But no, it didn't quite pan out like that. But I was on the plane, like learning the songs, just making sure that I knew them, just in case I had to walk up on stage and play. But it was like a couple of shows after that, and then it was like, okay, well, this is definitely happening. So, you know, how do you feel about it? And it was pretty cool, because like Ivan and Zoe, they both sat me down, and they were, you know, they were totally calm, and they weren't like freaking out or anything, because, you know, they asked me to come over anyway. And they were like, look, you know, we want you to kind of do well. We want this to go well. We're not like putting you under loads of pressure and stuff like that, going to be looking at you thinking, you know, fucking hell, what are we doing, sort of thing. So so they made me feel pretty chill about it. And then I was just like, yeah, cool, you know, let's go and see what we did, see what we can do. But the first gig, yeah, there was a couple of moments where it was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that happened.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was just a sort of trial and error process for like the first couple of shows. But I don't think anyone really, there wasn't any glaring like massive things that went wrong that, you know, have been committed to YouTube and forever poured over by fans going, well, you know, what were they doing? But yeah, you know, it was just one of those sort of fight or flight moments, and I'm lucky that it kind of went. It was positive. It all went really well. But yeah, I kind of just kept telling myself, I was just like, look, you know, no matter how big this gig is, or, you know, like the size of, like how many people are there, and obviously they'd probably be expecting to see another guitar player other than me up on stage. I'd just be like, you're not going to forget how to play guitar suddenly. So no matter how big it is, you'll be fine. Just play the stuff, and, you know, if you mess up any of the stuff, just improvise your way out of it until you get to a point where you can, you know, get back on track, sort of thing. So yeah, it was pretty quick, and it was overwhelming, but at the same time, you just got to step up and do it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And obviously, fast forward, you know, to 2022 and a new album, Afterlife. So what was that like now, going from the live stage to the studio and working with the guys in that capacity?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, like I said to you, I think the gap was good from that point of view, that like we could get to know each other a bit more on a personal level. You know, especially when you're sitting down writing and that, because I feel like if you get on and you have like a bit of camaraderie and stuff like that, I think you're kind of freer in sharing ideas and not worrying necessarily about, you know, like it was less formal, if you know what I mean. So you could just kind of like throw ideas in there and not be, you know, too worried about whether they're going to get shot down or not. Because that's the thing as well. Like, I'm already coming into a machine that's already well oiled, and they already have a process and they know what they're doing, you know. So it's like, if anything, any of my ideas were to be entertained, they would have to be something that would be good on their level, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So it was nice to sort of not be freaking out about that, and just kind of be fairly free with contributing any ideas or whatever. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, I've been a big fan of Kevin Churko for a long time as well, because I kind of interested in the audio world and that kind of thing. So actually sitting down in the studio and getting to know him and seeing him work and stuff was a real privilege for me. So that was one of the highlights, definitely. But yeah, you know, the whole process actually seemed fairly chill in comparison to studio experiences I've had before, where I've been in studios working 10, 12 hours, slave driving, you know, getting everything, you know, when everything was kind of cool the first take, and then having to do another 5,000 after that. You know, so like this process was a lot more, in my opinion, like professional and a lot smoother and a lot more pleasurable, I would say. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, obviously it's an interesting dynamic to sort of walk into something that's already established, like, you know, you mentioned before. So how did you kind of like, because obviously you said you'd been quite familiar with the band's work anyway, but how did you sort of approach sort of, you know, walking into something that was already established and kind of just treading that fine line between wanting to be really involved, but also knowing where your place was at that particular time as well?
I mean, it's really just as simple as like, kind of speak when you're spoken to kind of thing. I mean, I don't mean literally. I just mean like, you know, if any of like, you know, the guys in the band were like, okay, so have you got any ideas then, you know, show us what you got. So I didn't really force myself on the process. I knew that Zoltan had a bunch of ideas that he wanted to work through and sit down with Kevin and work through that stuff. And, you know, so I just kind of allowed that process to well, I'd say I allowed that process to happen. I just allowed myself to, you know, let that go before being asked if I had any ideas and that sort. I mean, obviously I was kind of like sitting there I had like a folder of ideas that I got together and stuff like that, but it was always my plan to never really present any of that stuff until I was kind of asked. And then that day sort of happened. It was just like, okay, cool, well, you know, let's see what you got. You know, have you got any like cool ideas and stuff like that? And I had like, you know, quite a lot, but they have like a process of like just sitting down, listening to stuff, making some notes and just seeing if there's anything that could be used or could be worked on or anything like that. So yeah, luckily there was a few good ideas that sparked the sort of creative process. But one thing I will say is I don't think whether it's sort of like understood from an outside point of view or not, but there isn't really like one particular person that like just, oh, okay, I wrote that song and the whole thing is like done. You know what I mean? I think the creative process, at least as I understand it with this band, having worked with them and done like an album, is there's somebody will come up with an initial idea, but then it takes everybody, you know, so it's like there'll be bits and pieces where someone will go, oh yeah, you know, what about this kind of thing, or what do you think it needs there, or, you know, it's a collaborative process, definitely. So it's kind of cool that, you know, so I can't turn around and go, well, yeah, I wrote that song, or I came up with this, or I did this, you know what I mean? Because it's way more of like, okay, well, I came up with this initial riff, or if I was asked to maybe come up with a section of a song that had already been written, so like, oh yeah, we need something for the solo section, have you got any ideas? And so like, you know, write something that would hopefully insert itself into a song. IOU was a little bit like that. Like the solo section was kind of crafted after all the other ideas had kind of been put together.
Okay.
You know, but it was finding something that would like, you know, bridge the gap between what section came before and after it. So like I say, it's just a collaborative process really, but it was cool. You know, it was nice to be included as much as I was, because I did actually think coming into this process I'd be like, just sit over there and here's the stuff and just learn that and, you know, play it live. But I very quickly realized that they seemed to be fairly interested in allowing me to contribute some ideas. Not all of them made the cut, you know, and they were pretty honest about that as well. But I think that's the thing. It's like, I'm not married to anything that I come up with. It's like, okay, cool, well, I'll just work on the next thing. And if you like that, cool. If you don't, then, you know what I mean? It's like, I've never been one of those musicians that get angry about stuff if it don't get used or whatever. Oh, I spent 8 hours on that. Like it's, you know, it has to be in the song sort of thing. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, it's great that it's all worked out. You know, obviously the band's sort of moving forward, and now you're sort of in the fold now. So it's great stuff. And obviously we're looking forward to possibly in the future, if it ever happens, looking to see you down in Australia at some time. We've always enjoyed you guys down here. So I don't know if there's any talks of coming down here at all, or.
Not that I don't know. I mean, I you know, I'm not part of the sort of like, oh yeah, where do you think we should tour then? Like sort of conversation. Maybe I will at some point. I don't know, but I've never been to Australia, so it'd be cool to go. But yeah, you know, I don't know. Who knows? We'll see down the line.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess. Well, anyway, congratulations on the new album, and obviously with joining the band as well. So, look, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed it today.
No worries.